morning. I can't remember the date, but it's a good one. Brian just told me it's the 30th. As amazing as it is, we find ourselves here. And the title of my talk this morning is, well, it was supposed to have been done a couple of weeks ago, but it was surprise, surprise. And we always think that things can be repeated in life, but no, life goes on. So when I ended up redoing the talk, it ended up being changed to hot damn celebration. And so in times like this, the weather, political, financial, is it possible to celebrate, to be surprised? And do we dishonor our lives and others, if we separate from the worry and the concern of global, weather, political, financial? Do we end up coming off like we really don't care? And yet, are we doing what's necessary to make changes? But what if we are perpetuating and continuing what's happening instead of approving things by the way we are thinking and talking about them? What to do? What to do? So many of us came to a life of spirit because we weren't sure what life was supposed to be. In my case, I said when I was 40, if this is life, I don't want any more of it. I was convinced that because I was fat, that was my whole problem. If I just lose weight, then everything would be good. So I did. And everything still wasn't good. And I'm still fat. But what I learned was there is a power in the universe for good. And I did use it, could use it, and would continue to use it. So out of the benefits from doing a life of spirit, what are the benefits? For me, and for most people that I know, joy, peace, love, caring, friends, money. Oh God, money. That's a good one. And yet we live in a world that the climate seems to be going, the government seems to be going, that this is going, that is going. The sun is not acting right. The planets are not acting right. So what can we do? That's the important part. How do we improve what is happening to what we would like to happen? If we, in fact, realize that what we give our attention to grows, and what we take our attention away from dies for want of a lack of a second, then how do we stay attached to what's happening and yet stay disconnected away from the ain't it awfuls and get connected to the point where we would like to live with? Can we stop a hurricane? No. Can we heal an illness? Well, most of us would like to say yes, but we don't know it's a guaranteed. What would a healing look like? And what is it we really want? More money? More friendships, relationships? And I know that right now I'm preaching to the choir because most of us all have come to the conclusion that this is how it's done. And so I stand here in testimony, having been able to have done it in my life, by realizing that there will be wars and rumors of wars, wars of money, wars of friends, disagreements, unhappiness. And yet they will not come nigh me unless I invite them in. I invite them in by thinking about them. It has been told that if you believe something is right, It is, and if you believe it is wrong, it is. Because it starts within us a chain of reactions that is spiritual, subtle, and yet measurable. Because when we teach treatment and we teach outcome, it proves our prayers, our treatment proves itself by demonstration. A la my friend teaching me, Hail Mary, full of grace, take me to a parking space. Now, this is where the fun gets in. When I first started this, it was a stupid thing, parking places, but it was a no thing. If in fact I started getting parking places, well, you know, that's coincidence. Every time when you go into a parking lot, if there's not many people there, you can get a close parking space. But what happens when you start getting convenient parking places every time? That is the proof we're talking about that says, when I speak my word, I cause something to happen. So if there's something in your life that you don't want, even though the evidence is there, now this is where the rubber hits the road. When the evidence in front of you continues to show you that what you are praying for is not happening, we have a tendency in our minds, because it's happened so often in our lives, to say, this doesn't work. But for me and for most people in the teaching that started having demonstrations, the evidence was absolutely proof that when I speak my word, I give thanks, it happens. And whenever things happen, it gives you the belief, or the changes your mind enough that you can, in fact, go to that place. And it's going to that place. And then finally, you start living in that mode where you do have more money, you do have more peace, you do have more everything. And when something comes, you are surprised, and yet you know that there's something that you can do to change it because you've done it before. And every time you do it and it works, then you do it again. This is where the surprise comes, to the point where I got to the point when I said I wanted something, or I wanted to do something, and people around me would say, you can't do that. And I would say, oh, yes, I can. I'm a religious scientist. And I did it all the time. Many, many people in our teaching does the same thing. Our lives reflect it. Our lives become our testimony. People look at us and say, why is your life the way it is? And sometimes if you tell them, they don't want to hear it. So get prepared for that. And then we come to expectation. If our lives are our expectation, we do have control of our expectation. Sometimes we have to write it down and say it over and over and over again. Sometimes we have to write letters to God. That's another thing, that another course I took in Dear God, here it's Sandy again. But the idea that you are communicating with the universe, and the universe is telling you, my dear, just take what you want. Because in the universe, everything is possible. Everything is possible. Can you imagine if someone has given you a diagnosis of something and you say, that's not possible? With the emotion that you are giving to that, you have set it in stone. But when you get quiet again, you can go to what Mary Morrissey talked about. Could you believe? Has it ever happened to anybody before? Could you be the first one to demonstrate this? This is sometimes the miraculous idea of the great teacher. Jesus spoke his word, and it became the way it was. That avenue is open to us to the level we are willing to open to it. That's the important part. Would you be willing to believe that you could have, be, or do this? Because in the universe, everything exists. That's the miracle. All we have to do is pluck it to us, draw it to us. This is what I say. This is what I want. Is it automatic? No, sometimes not so much. Is it so if you continue? Yes. If when the thoughts come to you, that's not possible, change it. Everything's possible. In the universe, everything's possible. Talk to yourself. And then when the demonstrations come, and I can guarantee you they will come, miraculous things. I've had books fall off shelves. That's an old saw, but it really does happen. I have had people come into my life. I know friends of mine who have lived a long time and have had demonstrations. And it's amazing to hear the stories. So another thing you can do is call your friends up that are religious scientists. Be in community, make friends. Where two or more are gathered in my name, there is the power. That's the reason why we come together and do treatment. Do we expect it to be good? There's an old story about Ernest Holmes, our founder and the writer of Science of Mind textbook. A lady came to him and said, Dr. Holmes, I have this terrible medical condition. Will you do treatment for me? And he said, yes, I would. So he took her aside and he did it. And as she walked away, she said, well, I hope it works this time. Where was her expectation? Maybe, maybe not. But when we understand that what we think, convincing ourselves of our great desire, is what must happen. Now, does it come out the way we think it's going to come out? I'm here to tell you no, but something better. Many times we think, if we hear of someone that has made their transition, or what we call transition is passing on, we will say, well, we prayed that they be healed and that they died. That's the healing.
I do, but the stuff is incredible.
Because we certainly do not know how God is going to make things happen, but it is perfect.
To avoid digital threats, just turn on North.
Okay, somebody is not muted. Would you please mute yourself?
Websites and now.
So most of us, when we go into this teaching and we gather together, there's stories about what has happened, what we've done and what we've done. And there's a lot of joy. When we met all together for lunch, there was more joy in the room, along with food and good company. And it was amazing when you get together with like-minded people, how much fun you have, how much joy you have. And that's when you begin to understand it can happen for everybody. I happen to be a licensed practitioner. Do my treatments work? Are they powerful? Yes, they are. Why? Only because I've read more books and do it, not because my prayers or more powerful than anybody. I just have had more experience of having that hot damn feeling. Hot damn, it works. It works every time. So then, can we change if we find ourselves being grumpy, if we find ourselves depressed, if we find ourselves fearful? What do we do? What can we do if we see the visual evidence, hear the saying of what's happening, read books about it? They say the human race is falling on its face and hasn't very far to go. Can we become cockeyed optimists, especially if it's not your nature? Only if you choose. And this is absolutely the best way to change your life. Choose to change it. And if your life is great, because sometimes I'm preaching to the choir, choose greater love, greater prosperity, greater. It doesn't mean greater money. It can mean more flowers on your bush. It can mean more steps in your walk. It can mean less pounds on the scale. It can mean anything that you desire to make it, because it comes under our belief. If you believe it's possible, it is. If you believe it's not possible, it's not. We build our faith by our demonstrations. That's why science of mind is provable by our demonstration. It is our individual's use of mind that changes our life. I can do treatment for someone, but as the lady said with Ernest Holmes, I hope it works. If you cannot convince your mind, your own particular mind, that it is possible, spend some time with the questions. Has it ever happened before? Am I willing that it happened to me? What would I have to give up to have this thing? And if it hasn't happened, can I be the first miracle? Going back to a friend of mine who is a minister and of a charismatic church, when she learned that she could instrument healings, many of my friends have heard this, she went down to Walmart handicap space on Friday night. And she was going to, and did, offer healings for people. And they looked at her and passed by. And she was so crushed because she was willing to give her time and her knowing and knew that she could help people. So she went back to her minister and she said, why wouldn't they? And the minister said to her, well, for one thing, they'd have to give up their handicap parking space. I never even thought about that in the things that we claim and allow ourselves to have, be, and do, there's a payoff for giving up excellence in every form. So we have to make certain sure that we're clear that the payoff is better than what we have traded in. When we are willing to ask the questions and do, and in our teaching, we have a recipe for prayer, 5 steps, 7 steps, blah, 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 blah. And I don't mean that it's not important, because it is. It's an organized way of doing it. However, I happen to know that the universe is at the top. The universe's job is to create and render to us what we have asked. And what we have asked and accept, we can be sure that the good is on its way. So it's within our minds where this stuff works. The universe is always making a whole lot of stuff. If we, in fact, wish to live in a world of peace, love, joy, and harmony, please do not add to, oh my God, what if this happens? Oh my God, what if that happens? Oh my God, what if this happens? My favorite thing is the societies have fallen and come back bigger and stronger. People who have been very, very ill, Norman Cousins, went to a motel and laughed his way to healing. There's too many incidences that it can happen. All we have to do is claim it happens for us. So how can we do it if our lives are pretty good? Now, my life's pretty good. Should I give up my practice? No. How can I imagine my life being better? Well, just for one, I could imagine my house being painted. I got new windows, but they took off my hurricane strips, and now the strips are below there. It's a little thing, but it doesn't look nice. Can the universe take care of a little thing? Absolutely. So that's on my list at night. I do a list at night of things I'd like to check off. There's all kinds of things to do it. That's one. So back to what I was saying. Ask the question, what is it I desire? Second question, is it possible? Has it ever happened? Am I willing to have it happen? Am I willing? Think about that. Because willing, we have this thing called our ego bit in our brains and this voice that talks to us. And it argues for the negative most of the time, trying to save us, trying to keep us good, but it argues for the negative. So give it another job. Give it another job. And so be willing. The minute you are willing and know it's better for you, your brain will stop arguing for it. Your mind will stop arguing for it. If it's never happened, allow yourself to be a miracle and then say, and so it is. So to this morning, my final message is to you. Make your life, be willing to be surprised when the goodness shows up. And when it's great, call it a hot done celebration. Hot damn. We're in charge. No exceptions. Every thought is a prayer. It's so simple, but sometimes not easy. Ask. The universe will always answer. And then feel the hot damn. Celebrate. Celebrate good times. Come on. There's a party going on right here. So celebrate and have a good cheer. And so ends today's lesson.